My name is Al Kramer. I was born in 1945. I was born Jewish. I was raised in a Jewish family. As I grew older, my grandfather passed away, and the one thing he asked is that I be bar mitzvahed, so I was bar mitzvahed at the age of 13. And up until that point in time, I had no even thoughts of being bar mitzvahed, but I did it for him because I loved him very much. And I can't say that religion played, in fact, it didn't play a big part of my life. It was a very small part of my life, if any part of my life. I believed in God, but I wasn't sure who he was, where he was, and I really didn't know anything about Jesus at that time. It's funny, I never knew he was born a Jew or he was Jewish until later on in my life. And as I moved from Denver, where I was born, to San Francisco, where I lived for 18 years, and then we came down here in 1991, when Carson was born and we started getting involved in school activities, there were very few, if any, Jewish families. Most of them were Christian. And at first I kind of backed off from it because I didn't understand it. And at that time, Barbara had started to go to Sunday school at Compass. And every Sunday she'd come home and ask me if I wanted to go with her. And I really had no thoughts of going with her at that point in time. But as she got more and more involved, and as a few years went by, she kept asking me. And so one day I decided to come to Compass and go to the Sunday school with her. And Ann and Roy were the teachers, and they were very, very generous to me, because coming in and really having no religious background, even though I could say I had a Jewish background, but I really didn't, I started questioning almost everything they said, whether it was from the Old Testament or the New Testament. And the more I went to that class, and the more they taught, and they taught in such a way as that you could understand the religion and you could understand what they were trying to get across, and they had no problems answering questions. I guess the first time I really thought about being baptized was when Carson, who was bar mitzvahed at 13 and chose to be baptized at 17, we talked a lot about it, and his comment to me is, "Dad, I feel so comfortable being Christian and around my Christian friends and celebrating life and celebrating Christianity, and I didn't feel any kinship or relationship to the Jewish religion whatsoever." To me, I have changed as a person since I've been on this path. I used to be people wanted to know if I had a heart or not. And I had a bypass at 61 years old, and they found the heart, so I guess I did. But I think that, to me, it's a matter of feeling free, feeling accepted, not worrying about where I'm going in the afterlife, not worrying about any of that. Now, I know I'm not sin-free. I know that I make mistakes. I know that I get people upset with me. But the one thing I've learned is that every night before I go to sleep, I pray. And I never did that before. And every night before I go to sleep, I read something in the Bible. And since I've been on this journey, I've probably gone through the Bible 2 or 3 times, each time learning a little bit more about the Old Testament versus the New Testament. So I'm very happy with the decision I made. I think one of the most emotional days of my life was the day I was baptized. On that day, I was had nothing on my shoulders, and I was just kind of nonchalant about it. But when I walked in these doors and Drew greeted me, I got to tell you that I was so emotional, I didn't stop crying until I got dressed again after the baptism. And it was like somebody putting their arms around me and saying, "This is where you belong, and it's okay, and you will see the joy in it afterwards as well as you do now, because being baptized is certainly a joyous occasion." And when I started to say the words that Drew asked me to repeat, I even got more emotional because all of a sudden I am accepting Jesus Christ as my Savior. And it just felt it felt right.
Man, what an incredible story of how God moved and worked in Al Kramer's life. And we are praying that maybe that's what God's going to do today for some of you. Welcome to Compass. Our mission is navigating people to God. My name is Nate. I'm one of the pastors here. So glad that you're worshiping with us. And welcome those of you in the room. Welcome to those of you at home. We're glad that you're here. If you're a guest, an extra special welcome to you today. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to connect with you. If you're in the room, stop by the Next Steps area, which is just by the blue curtain on your way out. If you're at home, at any time during the service, you can text Connect NFW to 94,000. We're going to send you a gift. Now, before I get into the message today, I've got some really exciting news to share with you that we wanted to let you know about today, and that is starting on July 11th, not June 11th, July 11th, we are moving back to Eaton High School where it all began, right? Yeah. And I know some of you, you're like, man, I love the movie theater seats, all right? But what I'm finding already is that this service is pretty much full. There's not very many seats left. And so it's an amazing move on a whole bunch of levels. One being that it gives us even more space. Another thing is that that's where we had all of our stuff designed when we went mobile for setup and tear down. And the theater, it presents itself some complications because they're going to open up here in a few weeks. And setting up and tearing down in a theater and trying to get out of here in a half hour after the service was going to be a lot of stress. And so we just felt like it was something like, God, if there's an open door that you would provide, and we were praying that, and he opened the door. And so Northwest ISD called us last week and said, do you want to move back to the school? And we were like, yeah, we do. And there's a lot of reasons why that's a really cool thing as well. I mean, that's our home base, right? That's where we started. And you can look out the student union windows and you can see the rooftop of our brand new building that is going up, right? Yeah. And by the late fall, we're going to be in that new building anyway. So we're just setting up and tearing down for a few months. And it's going to be a great opportunity for us to navigate more people to God, for you to invite your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, your family to be a part of it. God's on the move here. I don't know if you can sense that or not, but God is moving here. And yeah. And it feels so good. I got to tell you, it feels good hearing the amount of noise in this room today. Man, that feels good as a pastor. So I hope that you keep that energy up as we get into the message today. And we're continuing this series that we've been in called Say. And throughout this series, we've been talking about the power of your words and their potential to change your life. And throughout the series, what I've said is it's not just about saying these words, but it's about meaning the words that we've said. And so today, I want to talk about some words that I think are the most powerful words that you could ever say in your life. I'm praying that maybe some of you would say these words for maybe the first time ever in your life today. Now, let me just say this as well as we begin. If you've missed any of the messages in this series, I want to encourage you to go back to watch those messages online, because these 6 phrases that we're looking at in this series, we believe, are 6 phrases that we need to make a part of our regular language. And today's words that I want to look at here in a minute, these are the most important words that I believe that you can ever say. And these words that we're going to look at today, I'm just going to give you the first few words today, but the first few words of this phrase that I want to give you, they start with this: I believe. Now, the words I believe, they can be said about a whole bunch of things, can't they? Actually, these are really powerful words. I believe when you think about it, they're really powerful words. I mean, it's really the theme of every Christmas story, movie plot that has ever been created, I believe. But it's something that can be said about a whole bunch of things. It's a statement that we make. It doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen, or maybe even that it's true. In fact, in 2020, I had the opportunity to go watch my favorite team, the Cleveland Browns, play the Dallas Cowboys at AT&T Stadium. And after the Browns took down the Cowboys, I posted on social media this following picture. Watching the Browns take it to the Cowboys in 2020, I believe, as crazy as the year's been, I'm calling Super Bowl, right? Now, I got to tell you, for those of you who don't watch football, the Browns didn't win the Super Bowl this past year, but we did make it to the playoffs. We did go up against our bitter rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we beat the Steelers. And so now I have bragging rights in the office all year against Anthony and a couple of my Pittsburgh Steelers fans. So it was kind of like winning the Super Bowl because the Browns have been so bad, right? So that was a statement that I made. It didn't actually happen. But I make other statements. Sometimes you've heard me say some of these things. And for all of those of you who were born and raised in Texas, I know this one, like you get mad at me for saying this, but I believe that In-N-Out is better than Whataburger, right? All right. Oh, it's a mixed room here, all right? We got a lot of Californians that have moved to Texas, right? But then there's the Texans that are like, I can't believe he just said that. I'm tuning him out right now. I've also said this before. I believe that Chick-fil-A's chicken sandwich is better than Popeye's chicken sandwich. Now, all right, we're in consensus there. If anybody argues that, listen, you're arguing with God's chicken today, all right? So don't even mess around. And then I've said this too. I believe that Bluebell cookie two-step ice cream is one of the best ice creams that has ever been created. All right, a few of you like that one. We can all agree we love Bluebell ice cream, right? Now, these are statements that I've said, I believe. And I hope that all my Whataburger fans here, like, you know, I'm just messing with you today, like you don't tune me out because I really do want you to hear this message today. But here's the thing, why I say that. Have you noticed this? Have you noticed that belief is something that has really come under attack lately? Like, in fact, maybe you've experienced this in your own life. Like, if you have a strong belief or an opinion about something, have you noticed that you can be labeled as closed-minded? John Mayer, the famous singer and songwriter, he wrote a song several years ago called Belief, and in it he penned the words of the song that said this: belief is a beautiful armor but makes for the heaviest sword. We're never going to beat this if belief is what we're fighting for. And, you know, I read those words, I thought, man, that is such a powerful imagery there. You know, we all live in this world where we've been told that we can believe anything that we want to believe, that we're encouraged to believe what we want to believe. But the problem is that if you have specific beliefs, then suddenly you become narrow-minded or judgmental. And so these words, I think they're important. Belief can be the shield, but if we're not careful, belief can also be the sword that is used to cut others down. And so I guess the question that we have to ask and we answer before we go any further is this: what exactly is belief? I think the best way, maybe the simplest definition of belief is this: belief is trust, hope, or faith. Because think about this. When you say, I believe in something, what you're saying is I trust that this is going to be true, or that this is true. I trust that this is going to happen. Or maybe we're saying, I hope that this is the outcome, or I have faith that they will deliver. That's what we're saying when we say, I believe. So then knowing that, then here's the question that I want to ask, and here's where we're headed today. And that question is this: what are you putting your belief in? Is it the stock market? Cryptocurrency? Anybody a Dogecoin investor like me? Like I got in hoping that Elon Musk was going to say it on Saturday Night Live and I'd be rich. Maybe you've been putting your hope in the Dallas Cowboys front office. How about Luka Doncic and winning the first round of the playoffs, or maybe something greater than that? I want to be upfront with you today. My hope is at the end of this message is that all of you in this room and all of you at home, you would say the most powerful words that you can ever say in life, and they are these words: I believe that Jesus is Lord. Because here's the thing that I hope to show you today. You know, you can put your belief in a whole lot of things that will let you down, that will disappoint you, or that will fail you. But what I hope to show you today is that when you say these words, I believe that Jesus is Lord, when you believe that and you trust that what I hope to show you today is that Jesus will never fail you. He will never disappoint you. He will never let you down. Actually, as I said a minute ago, the words, I believe that Jesus is Lord, I really do believe that these are the most important words that you can ever say. And even more than that, these are life-changing words. These are actually what I would call life-giving words, and that's what I want to show you today. Now, I know that when you hear that statement, Jesus is Lord, like maybe that takes you to a bunch of different things. Depending on where you're at in your life, depending on maybe the family that you grew up in, or what you were taught when you went to church, or maybe even based upon the church experience that you had, it might be that the statement, Jesus is Lord, it means something different to you than the person sitting next to you, or the person who's at home on the couch with you. It might mean something different to that person than it even does to you. But what I want us to all understand today is that when we say Jesus is Lord, is that those are very specific words that have a very specific meaning. So then knowing that, then let me ask this question. What does it mean to say Jesus is Lord? Well, here's what I want to start. Like, before I give you what it means when we say those words, let me tell you what it doesn't mean when we say Jesus is Lord, because these are common misconceptions, I believe. Saying Jesus is Lord doesn't mean that you're perfect, that you attend church, or that you read your Bible every day. Saying Jesus is Lord doesn't mean that you've got this all figured out and that you are better than everyone else. Saying Jesus is Lord doesn't mean you won't mess up, you won't have problems, or that you'll never sin. Saying Jesus is Lord doesn't mean that you can't have any fun or that you can't live a normal life. Saying Jesus is Lord doesn't mean that you have to vote a certain way, that you have to put the fish emblem on the back of your car, or that you have to have the Jesus bobblehead on the dashboard, or you got to wear the Jesus is your homeboy t-shirt, right? Saying Jesus is Lord doesn't even mean that you have to have it all together. But unfortunately, this is far too often what many people have been led to believe when it comes to this relationship with Jesus, when it comes to understanding Christianity, that in order to believe in Jesus, that in order to have this relationship with him, you've got to fit into this nice, neat little box. And if you don't fit into the box, then you can't fit into this relationship with Jesus. Maybe some of the things that I said just a minute ago were things that you've been told when it comes to this relationship with Jesus. And even if you grew up in the church, my guess is that many of you, you've been told certain things, or you've been led to believe certain things that maybe aren't actually true, that actually have been misapplied to the gospel. That maybe you were led to believe that if you did these certain things, that those things would completely disqualify you from ever making it into heaven. And here's the problem. You see, for most of us, we hear things, or we're told things, or we're led to believe things that maybe we read them, or even we understand them some way because someone told them to us that way. But then we come to find out that maybe that's not actually the truth. That maybe it actually means something else. Maybe for some of you, you grew up in a family and you were taught that this is a certain thing that you had to do in order for God to love you, in order for God to forgive you. And then you walked through the doors of a church and you heard something maybe different than that. And this is true of many things in life, right? There's some things that have one meaning, but then they can mean something completely different. You know, depending on what country you're from, or even what generation you grew up in, there's things that mean one thing or have meant one thing before, or mean something in another country that means something totally different now. I was thinking about this in my own life. You know, I'm not very good at the whole texting with the abbreviations thing, like that my kids, they text in abbreviations. It's like code word. I don't even know what they're saying half the time. And so sometimes I'm like, I have to look up what they actually just texted me. And this reminded me of a story that our campus pastor at our North Richland Hills campus, Luke Davidson, told a few weeks ago as we were thinking about this message. He was talking about his dad. He said that his dad, one day, he noticed he had made a comment on someone's social media post about their family member who had passed away. And Luke said that his dad, he had responded and was offering his condolences and saying how sorry he was and everything. And Luke was reading the comment, and he said he got to the end of the comment that his dad had made, and his dad had just typed these three letters, LOL. And Luke was like, some of you know where this is going already. Luke was like, he called his dad up right away, and he was like, Dad, I saw the post that you made on so-and-so's page about their family member dying, and I just wanted to know, do you know what LOL means? And his dad was like, yeah, I know what it means. It means lots of love. And Luke was like, no, Dad, it doesn't mean lots of love. It means laugh out loud, and dying is not funny, right? And some of you in the room, you're like, I've been typing LOL for thinking it was lots of love, and you're going to have to apologize to a whole bunch of people right now. I'm just helping you out today, all right? Or how about this? You go to other countries, some of the words that we say here in America, they mean something completely different in these other countries. Like, did you know in Ireland, the word pants, it actually doesn't mean pants in Ireland. Like, it's not talking about jeans or joggers or whatever. It's actually talking about underwear. So we had a staff member at Compass. She was from Ireland, and she would always chuckle anytime somebody talked about khaki pants, because when she heard khaki pants, in her mind, what she thought people were talking about is that somebody had just made a mess in their underwear. So You go to Ireland, don't talk about your khaki pants, all right? Or any Garys in the room. Like we had a Gary at first hour, and I'm trying to help out all the Garys out there in the world and all the Garys in my life, all right? Those of you online, hey, if your name's Gary and you ever travel to Japan, change your name, all right? Like use your middle name or use a different name because the name Gary in Japanese, it actually means diarrhea. So if you go to Japan and you say, hi, my name is Gary, literally what you're saying is, hi, I have diarrhea. So I'm just trying to help out some Garys in the world today, all right? Now, here's why I say those things. These are funny things that are not going to happen to you. If your name's not Gary, you don't have to worry about that one, right? But what sometimes is said doesn't actually mean the same thing, depending on it. It can have a completely different meaning. And for some of you here today, for some of you at home, the words Jesus is Lord, you have the wrong idea of actually what it means. So with the time that we have left today, here's what I want to do. I want to show you what these words, Jesus is Lord, I want to show you what that really means. If you've got a Bible or you've got a Bible app on your smartphone, go ahead, turn with me to the book of Romans. We're going to be in Romans chapter 10 today. It's in Romans 10 that Paul, who's the writer of this book, he's writing to some early Christians. He says something that he makes this statement about Jesus being Lord, and I want you to listen to what he says starting in verse 9. He says this, if you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Paul says if you make this statement, I believe that Jesus is Lord, he says, I want you to understand what you're saying. And so for these next several minutes, here's what I want to do. I just want to break down what it means when we say these words, I believe that Jesus is Lord. Now, the first thing I want you to understand when you say those words, I believe that Jesus is Lord, I want you to understand what it means is this, is that the battle is won. Like it means that you don't have to strive to be perfect or that you don't have to live this perfect life. That's not what the Christian walk is about. Understanding this phrase, Jesus is Lord, means you realize what Jesus has already done for you. That he was perfect, that he took our place, that he died on the cross in our spot. He took all of our sins and he nailed them to the cross, and then 3 days later, he resurrected from the dead for us. When we say those words, I believe that Jesus is Lord, we realize that he's already won the battle and that we are living in response to that. In fact, look at what Paul says just a few verses earlier here, chapter 10, verse 4. He says this. He says, for Christ has already accomplished his purpose for which the law was given. As a result, all who believe in him are made right with God. You see, Paul says Christ has already accomplished his purpose. He's already won the battle, Paul says. And because of that, then here's the second thing that I want you to understand, and that is this, is that anyone can be a part of this. Because notice what Paul says there in the second half of verse 4. He says, all who believe in him are made right with God. It doesn't say some who believe in him. It says all who believe in him. And there's that word believe again. It's all who put their hope, their faith, their trust in what God has done. Like this isn't some select club. You don't have to be a card-carrying member to enter into heaven. All you have to do is believe. You didn't have to grow up in a certain family. It's not a matter of race or background or where you're from. It's not a rich or poor thing. It's not socioeconomic driven. It's not whatever you've been led to believe. You see, this is for everyone. That's why here at Compass, you're going to hear me say this on a regular basis, or you'll hear anyone from our state. I say this all the time because I believe this. That I believe that this is a place where people should always feel love and acceptance. They should never feel outcast or unwanted, because the Jesus that I read about in the Bible was a Jesus who was for all people. He was for everyone, and this is for everyone. And when Paul says, when you believe this and you accept what Jesus has done, then Paul says this. He says, the good news is this, you're made right with God. Catch, Romans 10 is not like the only place where Paul actually talks about this. We can go back to Romans chapter 3, verse 22. Notice what Paul says there. He says, we are made right with God by placing our faith in Jesus Christ. This is true for everyone who believes, no matter who they are. And that's the key. Paul wanted us to understand this. This is for everyone, that no matter what you've done, no matter your past, that you can be forgiven. But you know, one of the conversations that I have with a lot of people when it comes, and they're wrestling with this decision of, is Jesus Lord of my life? One of the conversations I have with people is they think that in order for God to love them, or in order for God to forgive them, they've got to get everything right first. Like they've got to fit into that box. That's what they've been led to believe. That in order for God to accept you, some of you, you've been led to believe that you've got to get everything right, that you can't have anything wrong in your life. But here's the problem with that thinking. You can never do this on your own. Because we're all sinful, we're all broken, we're all messy people. I'm a mess every single day. And we're going to continue to mess up even after we make the decision to follow Jesus with our lives. So in order for us to get it right by ourselves, it's never going to happen. But the good news is this, is because of Jesus, because of his death on the cross, he did it for you. Because of Jesus' sacrifice, you've been made right with God. And when you understand that, it begins to change everything. It's freeing because what happens is knowing that it allows you to instead live in response to the fact that you have a God who loved you so much, he was willing to send his son to this earth for you, and because of what Jesus has done for you, you are good. So listen, when we say those words, I believe that Jesus is Lord, what that means is we understand the battle is already won. It also means that anyone can be a part of this. It means that you have been made right with God. But then catch what Paul says next, verses 9 and 10. It says, if we openly declare that Jesus is Lord, if you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is by believing in your heart that you are made right with God. It is by openly declaring your faith that you are saved. Now, I underlined a couple of things there. I want you to underline those if you're following along here. And I underline these two things because this is really important to understand. You see, when you say those words, I believe that Jesus is Lord, here's the amazing news. Paul says in verse 9, he says, when you say those, when you believe that, he says, you will be saved. Not you can be saved. No, he says, you will be saved. That's guaranteed. You don't have to live in fear. You don't have to wonder, am I in or am I out? Did the mistakes that I made this week, did those things disqualify me? Did I read my Bible enough this week? Did I apply Pastor Nate's sermon? And if not, like, am I on the outs? Maybe even, like, some of you, it might be, did my baptism even count? No, if you openly declare that Jesus is Lord of your life, and you believe in your heart, Paul says you'll be saved. So it's belief. It's believing in who God is and the goodness of God and that he loved you so much that he was willing to send his son. And then Paul says it's declaring that Jesus is Lord. And that's what's going to happen today for several people who are going to get baptized at the end of this service. They're going to go out, they're going to go under the water, but before they do that, I'm going to ask them to repeat that confession of faith. I believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. He is my Lord and Savior. So it's belief and declaration. You know, as I was studying this message, I came across something that was really powerful. I really never thought about it this way before, but I was just kind of studying and just looking at these words, and I'm not a Greek scholar by any means, but I looked up this word saved. And when I looked it up, the word saved is actually this Greek word sozo. And it means saved, but it means something else too. It means, it can also mean restored purpose. And this is an incredible picture to me of what happens when we say those words, I believe that Jesus is Lord. What that means for you is this, is that you have a restored purpose. You know, my wife Amanda and I, we love to go to old antique stores, or we love to go to these market days that are around, and we like to go and find old stuff, and then we like to take it home, and then we'll repurpose it, and we'll fix it up, and we'll use it in our house as decorations. And as I was preparing this message, I was actually sitting in my home office one day a few weeks ago, and I started thinking about this, like restored purpose and some of the things that we've restored, and I just started looking around my office, and just to the right of my desk, there's this metal cabinet that my wife Amanda found at a market day at Decatur with some $20 legs from Amazon and some TLC. Was able to clean it up, and now it's this cool piece that sits in my office there. And then right above it, I looked, and there's this picture that hangs in my office. It's actually made out of some old barnwood from an old family farm, my grandpa's farm that he grew up on. He had salvaged the barnwood, and I'd asked him if he had any, and so we took it and we made this pretty cool cityscape out of it that now hangs in my office. And then I looked outside the office, and there in the hallway, in the entry of our home, there's this old sewing table that used to belong to my wife Amanda's grandma. She was getting rid of it, and Amanda was like, I can't let this go. And so she bought it from her grandma, and she brought it home, and we took it, and we painted it, and restored it, and now it sits as this entry table in our home that has this new purpose. And just like these items once had this purpose, but they weren't wanted anymore, what Amanda and I were able to do is we were able to take them, we were able to repurpose them, we were able to restore them and give them a new purpose. And that's the same thing that God wants to do with you. See, when Paul says, if you believe and you declare that Jesus is Lord, you will be saved, he's not talking just about this future purpose in heaven, what happens after you die. No, he's talking about your purpose here and now. Because listen to what it says in verse 10. He says, in verse 9, he says, you will be saved. Verse 10, why I had you underline those words is he says, you are saved. This means that your life here on this earth, when you say those words, I believe that Jesus is Lord, it means that you have this restored purpose now. It means that this life is not a waste of time, that it's not meaningless, that it has purpose. You see, Jesus did for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. He took the broken, he took the weathered and the wasted parts of our lives, and he gave them purpose again. And he saved us by dying for us. But probably the thing that I love most about what happens when we say, I believe that Jesus is Lord, what that means for us when you and I, we believe those words and we declare those words and we believe them from the innermost part of who we are. When we say, I believe that Jesus is Lord, what that means is we are saying that my shame is not, that my addiction is not, that my past is not, that my anxiety is not, that my depression is not. When we say those words, I believe that Jesus is Lord, what that means is that money is not Lord of our life, that my career is not Lord, that my insecurity is not, that my brokenness is not, that my hurt is not, that my past is not, that my pain is not. Because here's the reality. There can only be one Lord of your life. I thought this was such an appropriate quote for today's message. I found it as I was studying. It said this: Christ is either Lord of all or he's not Lord at all. I think that's pretty powerful when you think about it. My hope and prayer for each and every one of us here today is that we would be able to say these words: Jesus is Lord of all in my life. Hear this again. There can only be one Lord in your life. And if Jesus is in control, there's nothing else that can sit on the throne in his place in your life. So today, if you find yourself, if you're at home or if you're in person, if you find yourself tired from an addiction running your life, if alcohol seems to be dominating you, if pornography has a hold of you, if there's a habit controlling you, or greed is consuming you, or fear has a grasp on you, or anxiety or anger are lording it over you, you can find power over these things. You can actually dethrone them in an instant, and it starts when you say these words: I believe that Jesus is Lord. Paul says this in Romans chapter 10, verse 13. He says, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Declaring that Jesus is Lord gives you restored purpose. Declaring that Jesus is Lord has eternal consequences. Declaring that Jesus is Lord means that you are forgiven. Declaring that Jesus is Lord means that you have been offered victory from your past. Declaring that Jesus is Lord means that you know the battle has already been won. So let me ask you this today. Do you believe this about Jesus? Do you believe that Jesus, in all his perfectness, he came and he became like us? Do you believe that he lived, he died, and in 3 days he rose again to save us from our sins? That's what you have to decide. The British author and thinker C.S. Lewis once wrote these words about Jesus. He says, a man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on the level with a man who says he's a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool. You can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet. Call him Lord and God. So again, let me ask you this today. How do you see Jesus? Do you see him as a liar? Do you see him as some lunatic? Or would you say today these words, I believe that Jesus is Lord? That's my hope for each and every person here today and online, is that you'd say those words, I believe that Jesus is Lord of my life. And if you've never made that decision, if you've never declared that before, I want to give you that opportunity today. And so just a minute, we're going to sing this song as we close out today. And as we do, if you've never made that declaration, but today's maybe the day that you want to do that for the first time, we want to invite you to come to the front. You can grab one of these towels. If you're making that decision to be baptized, I want to invite you to come to the front. And you can head out and we'll get ready to get changed and do baptisms at the end of this service today. But if you're ready to make that decision, you can do that today. We've got everything that you need. We've got clothes to change into. We've got it all. If you're at home and you've never made that decision, but today maybe is the day where you want to make that decision, you can just type those words, I believe that Jesus is Lord, in the chat section. Our team's going to reach out to you. Or you can text Connect NFW to 94,000. For others of you in the room, maybe for some of you, you've been on the run from God for a while. And maybe today's a day where you need to redeclare Jesus Lord of your life, that you need to stop running from him and you need to start running towards him again. We want to give you that chance as well. And so as we sing this song today, if you're in the room and you've been on the run from God and you need to come back to him, we want to invite you to come to the front. We'd love to pray with you. We'd love to talk to you about making the most important decision that you can to follow Jesus again with your life. And if you're at home and you live in another state, let me just talk to you for a minute, because we know that you tune in each week. If you've never made that decision to be baptized and you want to get baptized, please reach out to us. Text those words, Connect NFW to 94,000, or put it in the chat section. I believe that Jesus is Lord. And we'll help you find a place to get baptized in the town you live in. We're here for you. For those of us who have already made that decision, who have already declared that in our lives, here's what I want to say to you. Don't ever stop declaring Jesus Lord of your life. When the difficulties, when the troubles, when the insecurities mount in your life, that's when you need to say it over and over again. I believe that Jesus is Lord. I believe, God, that you can help me out. I believe that you're there for me. I believe that Jesus is Lord. And then I want to say this too. For those of us who have already made that decision, we shouldn't be afraid to declare that to others. We should be going out and telling other people about what the goodness of God is and it looks like in our own life, so that other people who we know do not have that relationship, they have the chance. Because once we make that decision to follow Jesus with our lives, it doesn't stop there. We're called to be a light. We're called to go out. We're called to introduce other people to Jesus and navigate them to God. That's why our mission here is navigating people to God. So we're going to sing this song today. And as we do, for those of you who are in the room who've already made that decision, I just want you to maybe say it out loud. I believe that Jesus is Lord as we sing this song. Just declare that again. For those of you who have never made that decision, maybe today's the day where you take courage, and you walk forward, you grab one of those towels and you make that declaration. Or maybe you've been on the run and you need to return. Maybe it's time to redeclare those words today. So right now, as we sing this song, would you stand if you're in the room? If you're at home, stand where you're at. Sing this song with us and declare those words.